looks like when after you get married, because things can get changed because depending on taxes and everything. So it's always good like to talk about it openly so that it's a clear communication later down the road. So here are things of what you should discuss in terms of financially. And first is like your partner's money habits. And that's really like basically like how one views something, like sometimes they would view something as more luxury versus something that is a necessity. So it's really important, like what is in the view of the partner side, like what they view as more important than the other, because it could be different. Next is your individual joint goals. This is basically like sometimes like before you are even married, like you have your student loans or any other loans that you're working towards, that's your individual. But like when you get into when you are married, then you might have like some sort of estate loans, like basically you bought a house. So it could all depend. And so it's good to have a list of what your individual and joint goals are so that you can plan your life accordingly. Tax implications. So this is when like this could go either way. So if you are, after you get married, you basically can file your taxes as a couple, and it can either give you a high tax rate because your incomes get higher combined, but it could also get lower considering if you have some sort of tax advantage or something like that, it could either get lower. So it really depends on circumstances, and it's a good thing to talk about. Then some loans and debt, as I talked about, like loans and debt could be like student loans that you're coming towards, or like you might even have credit card loans. So it's good to like sort that out before too, or even cars or something like that. Combining assets. So this is like identifying assets like properties you own, your checking accounts, like considering the pros and cons of each and just knowing that. And then protections. So this is something like, okay, so it could start with like you might be signing a prenuptial agreement before you get married, just so like if you decide to set parts part away after a few years of getting married, like you know like who's getting how much, and you have that proper legal division in terms of your assets and properties. So these are the 10 tips of when you have to deal with salary differences. So this could be like depending on jobs, titles, anything. When you get married, you can have base salary differences, and so it's like how you can cope with that. It's always good to like have contribute same percentage of one's income. It's good. You have to be self-respective and be open to talk about it. Considering a prenuptial or a postnuptial nuptial agreement. Be mindful of your tone. That's important. You don't have to be sounding selfish or arrogant about your income or anything, because that sets a bad impression. Then creating a budget. It's like always like you can have like monthly expenses laid out of each partner to see where you're spending more and where you can tackle ways so you can spend less and like save money for future. Agree on basic financial dynamics and considering contributions outside of salary, and then enjoying money together. Okay, so this is like estate planning. So estate planning is something that's really good for minor children, but it's also something that you can, it's also like including documents like living trust, last will and testament, and also the durable power of attorney. Living trust could basically mean like if someone dies in the family, like a father or mother, like who they can like basically have their assets assigned to their adult children. So that's what the living trust does. Last will and testament is like a legal document that communicates a person's final wishes pertaining to the assets. This could regularly be like what a parent wants if they die, and this is really like who gets more, something like how it's going to be divided if there's like basically like more siblings or something like that. And then durable power of attorney is like it stays in effect if you become incapacitated and unable to handle matters on your own. So it's basically like some person is there in charge of your financial, I guess, if something happens to you and you're not able to do it. So that's that. And So these are apps to get help that you can use in order to balance your financials. So I divided into like pros and cons for each. So like if we start with Honeydew, it's obviously like free to use. You can manage the couple's money together, track spending. Versus the cons would be like some say that it's buggy and the transactions not showing up immediately. Now that could be pretty stressful sometimes because it's all about your finance and everything. So if it doesn't show up properly, it might be a kind of like a stress point. Good Budget is another, which is like a free version of the app. It has digital envelopes to help save for big goals and cautioning of when you're over budget, which is important aspect with savings. And then cons is I can't connect bank accounts, so it's like very tedious work. Like you have to go on your bank account, find the amount, and then put it into the app, and so it gets very tedious and time consuming. And then Mint is other, which is like again free to use. It syncs to the bank accounts and credit cards, and it also the plus point I found here was like it also has educational tools and blogs. So if someone doesn't know about financial how to start it would be a good place to go ahead and start so that they don't make any mistakes or learn more. And then cons is like some user reviews complain of ads, glitches in app, and expenses assigned to wrong category, which again could be a big issue in terms of financial because it's a big deal. Sometimes you could be dealing with big amounts, so it can be like really stressful again if something goes wrong. And then the last one is You Need a Budget, which is offering a 34-day free trial, but students get 12-month free. So I feel like that's an added advantage for students if you use that account. And it also provides personal customer support. So if it's like you're finding any problems, you can like talk to them or contact the customer support and they will be helping you. The cons is that this is out of all the ones they like it does has a subscription fee, like it has $84 per year or $11.99 per month, and so that's something to again think about considering your expenses already if you still want to go with this kind of app. And then again, it's longer time to set up than other apps. That points out the tedious and the time consuming aspect of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So in all honesty, with like the way that you're approaching relationships in your life, you're not thinking about your will and stuff like that right at the current moment, but maybe when you're starting dating in college, especially, and you're getting serious about one of your partners, just keep in mind how they're spending their money. Because if you see a future with this person, then it might be time for you to eventually evaluate like, how are their habits for spending going to affect my life in the future as well? And when you're having like moving in together, splitting rent expenses and stuff like that, it's just good to keep in mind and look at like how they're spending, how you're spending, how you both grew up, and what messaging you heard around this stuff so that you guys can be like the most efficient. I know that a lot of people, especially marriages, like you're talking about money all the time, you're stressed about it. So making sure that you have like some of these things in mind and that you're talking about money openly could, you know, help save you some stress in the future. Any questions on relationships and money? Significant others.
Yeah, so now we're gonna talk about like mostly parents and then like also like your like other families, like siblings and stuff. So one like term that's like thrown around a lot is like co-signing. And for like those who don't know what it means or don't like haven't had to experience it yet. So it's like basically when you're signing something or like getting a loan, you have to have someone like co-sign on it. So it just basically adds their name to the primary borrower's loan. And so like if anything happens, if you like you're not coming up with like the rent or like your loan payments, then they're financially responsible for it too. So basically it's used when like say for a student, like I don't have a lot of like credit like built up. So like I may not be able to like buy like do my rent, like, you know what I mean? Like sign for my rent or sign for like different like private student loans. So my parent would have to step in and like co-sign because they have a lot more credit and like they look good and like, you know, someone who's giving me a loan's eyes versus like me, like I don't really have much credit to my name. So that's basically why people do it. So the benefits, you know, it can help you qualify like for college tuition, credit cards, and like save you interest, versus like you are responsible for the loan, like you and your parents' credits, like, or whoever is co-signing your loan is on the line. And so then you could be sued by the lender. So it's difficult, it's like tricky because, you know, you want to be like on your own, but like you're gonna need someone else like in the beginning when your credit may not be as good to like help back you up financially and like kind of put like their own like risk on the line. And then, so especially with parents, like knowing what their plan is for the future. So like knowing their will and their estate plan and their power of attorney, just like Ria was talking about earlier, like it's really important to get comfortable, like to say like if anything bad happens or like later down in life, like this might not be now, but like, you know, when you're in their 40s and your parents are old, like, you know, there's like conversations to be brought up about, they're a little difficult, but you know, it's just important to know. And then also long-term care insurance. So it helps to cover the cost of care, like chronic medical conditions and disabilities or disorders. So most policies will reimburse for care given in your home, nursing home, and assisted living facility, and adult day care center. So you won't qualify for long-term care insurance if you already have a condition or if you're over 75. So like your parents probably have it for like, because they're in like their 50s or 60s, or get it like a couple of years down the line. So it's like you should be aware of like what your parents like plans are, like what their insurance is, because again, if like anything happens or like when they become old, like where are they gonna live? Like, so it's just things like think about, you know, learn from them too. Like insurance can be tricky. So like, why are they choosing this one and not another one? So it's just topics to talk about. Yeah, and then this just continues on with like assisted living. So have this, you know, conversation earlier, probably before they get like really old, and like if you're planning to like move them into assisted living, like evaluate their needs, like whether they want to go to a nursing home or is like it's their priority to like stay in their home and be comfortable. And then of course, like looking at like the cost, like how much money they have allocated for it, if any, like and like their retirement plan if they've already budgeted out, or yeah, or just look up like what are the cheaper options, what are the more expensive options, and like what are your parents' like priorities. And then also just be comfortable with like their retirement plans, like maybe know like when they're like officially retired, like what does that mean for them, what does that look like, kind of access like their documents, like their like being able to locate their documents like further down the line. So like bank accounts, trusts, insurance policies, investments, pensions, social security. It's just again, like all things to like keep in mind. It's a little like a weird subject to talk about because it is so early, and like, you know, you don't want to like think about like, you know, parents like assisted living, but it's all like small topics, and then later down the life it'll become, you know, important. And then just some like facts, according in like 2020, almost 1/3 of adults with at least one living parent are provided financially support to them. Over 40% of respondents expect to provide support to their parents in the future. And it's extremely common for adult children from immigrant families to financially support their parents. So like, look at your values, like, you know, I plan to help my mother like when I'm older and like help her like financially. And like also like get an idea of like where your parents are at, like what are their wills, like how much are you getting, etc. And then
Do we have any questions about this type of stuff? I know these conversations are hard, but they're important to have with your parents. Maybe not like in your 20s, but especially when you're getting a little bit older, like know what your parents' plans are for the future. And if they don't have them, like help them make them, and you know, research and stuff like that. Any questions? All right.
On a more lighter topic, we now have roommates and friends. So especially with roommates, I mean, I know like everyone's moved in, but and you like know your roommate, but like maybe next year, and like for housemates, it's like little rare, it's very different from like just roommates. So, you know, whose name on each bill is going like in, like how are you going to split them? So like say if you're moving in a house, like who's going to pay like what expenses, who's going to pay the water bill, and like how do you divvy that up? It's like, it's very important. Yeah, who's going to pay for like the internet and the cable bills. they're all like things you don't think of like right at first. So like planning them out ahead is like really important. And then, just splitting them up evenly is like obviously like your best option. Also talk about like groceries and cleaning supplies. Again, something like, you might not think about, but do you want to do like groceries shared or like individually? And how are you gonna like split that up individually? Are you gonna put like your names on everything? Like, it's just like things to talk about and kind of have a plan for action for. And then also move out is really important. So like when you're buying stuff, I think it's like, I recommend like, one person like buying like a couch, like buying singular items and kind of like match the level, because if you do like, oh, we'll split the couch, it might be difficult, like who's gonna take the couch after, unless like it's like a gross couch at the end of the year and you're gonna like throw it away, but like just in case. So just having those topics like before you move in, like who's buying what and who's getting what is really important. Yep, and then also like, use an Excel sheet to track expenses.
We also, my roommates a couple of years ago, we used Splitwise, which you can split your expenses. It's an app. I think it's really helpful if you guys want to use it for the future.
And then oftentimes you go on trips with friends. So, just talking about like some of the big expenses, like obviously you're gonna probably buy your like air travel separately, but say if it's like a car trip, like what is the gas? So just like those big expenses. And then also like be on the same level about like how much money like you're allocating for the trip, because say if some person like wants to go out on these like fancy dinners all the time, like, and you just did not allocate for that, like that's gonna be a big miscommunication. And then there'll definitely be some trouble on the trip. Definitely recommend like looking back at traveling on a budget and like communicating that with your friends. But yeah, so just like take advantage of bill sharing services. Uber and Lyft, you can split in the app, so it makes it like so much easier instead of like trying to be like, please Venmo me. And then download like different help apps for expense splitting. Yeah, and just some other tips, like don't feel shy or bad, like reminding friends to send you money. They'll do the same to you. You know what I mean? It's not like personal, it's money.
Awesome. Any questions on roommates? Okay, so we'll talk about finance professionals. So these could be like your wealth advisors, bankers, stuff like that. Not everyone interacts with them on a daily basis, but eventually you'll have to when you start making money. So what do you want to look for when you're looking to hire a finance professional? So their ability to predict, plan, prioritize, and identify the financial problems. Do you think that they're competent? Can they communicate to you, and can they explain things that they're doing in an easy manner, right? So if they're talking about all these complicated financial terms, you're not understanding what they're saying. You don't really want them to manage your money because you're not going to know what they're doing with it. A good financial advisor should be able to explain to you what they're doing in simple terms. That they make suggestions backed up by facts. They're like, oh, this is the way we've always done it. Be like, this is the way that we do it. This is why. And that's how you know you're going to have a good financial advisor. And then you as a client need to know what financial services you need. So thinking about it before you enter a bank and being like, okay, well, I have $10,000. I don't really know what to do with it. And you can have it and play around with the money. Be like, okay, well, I've looked into it a little bit. I kind of want to put half of it in my checking account. I want to put half of it in my savings account. I want to put a little bit aside for investing. Can we open these accounts? Can you help me set them up? Stuff like that. So there are fee-based financial planners that are paid directly by the clients for their services. That's you paying them. And they act as a fiduciary, so they put their clients' interests first. Essentially, they're putting your interests first. Or fee-based financial planners, which are paid by the clients, but also by other sources, like brokers or dealers, they're also known as. So they sell products, but they may not exactly care about your outcome because they also are selling like certain stocks and certain bonds that people are paying them to sell. And so a lot of the times you're going to have some different conversations with your banker. Make sure that you're understanding it. Ask those clarifying questions if you don't. Many banks offer free advisory services, like you can walk into Chase and be like, hey, I have an account with you. Can you please like help me set up like what to do with this and stuff like that. But they sometimes come with incentives of like opening a checking account or stuff like that. So just be wary and be transparent about your relationship. And remember that like you're hiring them, you can also fire them if you don't like them. Like they're not your friend. You don't like they're providing a service for you. So make sure you're discussing your budget goals and financial concerns. And then letting someone else manage your retirement fund. Sometimes this is like something that your parents do, or it could be something that you do. Not everyone has the time to manage a 401k, so you can let someone else do it. If you have like a big sized account, or if you need help creating that portfolio that we were talking about earlier, and they can help you make your target asset mix, which is just like the percentage of stocks and bonds and other stuff that you want to get to optimize your portfolio, and so that you have the least amount of risk based on diversification, as we talked about earlier. And then sometimes you might not want someone to manage your account if it's like smaller, say you're just starting up your job, you don't have that much money in your 401k, so you can just manage it by yourself, because they will charge you a fee to manage your retirement fund. I'm not sure how much it is, but sometimes it's like a percentage of your account. And then you can break up with your financial advisor. So if you don't like them, if you're not understanding what they're saying, they're losing you a lot of money, then you can break up with them. It's a business deal. You don't have to stay with them. And your new advisor will do the work of transferring your accounts, but you're not obligated to contact your advisor before you transition, but you probably should before you move all your accounts and stuff. And then that's why, because the financial wouldn't want a dead account on the books. Any questions about that earlier one?
Where should I go?
Go ahead.
Where would you go find a financial advisor?
There's lots of options. You can look them up online for reviews. You can ask maybe your parents or your parents' friends or stuff like that. And then there are a lot of like bigger, more trusting financial advisors. Like, you know, when you think of big banks, you think of Charles Schwab and Fidelity. Those are financial advisory services as well. So they can offer advice and stuff like that. Or you can find like smaller financial advisors, maybe in your area as well. So then you can meet them in person versus like over Zoom or over the phone. Any other questions? Awesome.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about your relationship with your employer and the company that you work for. So these are I found 6 different tips that you should have when going through the interview process with a potential employer that you would have. So first, you want to be prepared for negotiation. You want to go in doing your research and knowing more about your company and what they can offer you, but then also what you can offer for them and how you can benefit their company. You also want to know your worth and, you know, find your fit. You can go to different salary scale websites such as Glassdoor, salary.com, PayScale, and kind of do a more in-depth research of your worth, obviously. And then you want to be your own greatest advocate. Remind yourself of the experiences you've gained and make you a worthy candidate. So that's a big thing with interviews. They might ask you different questions. You want to be sure you have like a toolbox of answers that you can readily give that use the CAR method. I'm sure many of us have heard that, where you have the context and then the action that you gained from that, the action that you took in that event, and then the result of that experience, or even like a learning thing that you've had from that. And you also want to act with confidence, and because confidence is like how you go into something really determines the effectiveness of like how you get the job. And then the interest, the biggest thing is like the interest should be two-sided. You don't like it, you're not going into like a great job, they're also getting a great candidate. So set yourself up for success and know that, like she was saying, you don't have to accept the job if you're not comfortable with it. And then the last thing is you want to ask your employer about coverage options, such as bonuses or paid time off, vacation days that you can take, anything that isn't necessarily addressed in the interview. And then also insurance coverage such as dental or medical. Then we have recruitment, hiring, and exiting. So you want to do your research going into recruitment, like I was saying in the last slide. Be prepared for the negotiation process and always try to set yourself higher than they may be expecting you. You want to be transparent with your potential employer and try to find bigger offers that they could give you. And then understand the non-monetary benefits such as like insurance or anything related to that, like paid time off, sick leave, that type of thing. And then hiring, you want to have conversations with your employer about overtime and set boundaries for work-life balance. So make sure you just have a good relationship with your employer and they're not like pushing you to do something too much or vice versa. And you want to have discussions surrounding bonuses and promotions with confidence. And exiting, you will want to make sure you want to take into account how many vacation days you might not have used or you might have used, and bonuses as well before you leave. Just taking that into account for your next potential occupation. And then have conversations with your current employer about transferring retirement plans to the next company that you were looking into. And also stock options that allow you to buy shares at discount. Figure out how long you have to cash the stocks out.
You. Perfect. Yeah, a lot of the times when you're doing recruitment and stuff like that, you're only thinking about your base salary. But there are a lot of different ways that you could be getting benefits from your companies, like any bonuses that you might get, any stock sharing options, as we talked about on the bottom. Sometimes that's how companies motivate their employees, is like, we're sharing the stock. Like your healthcare can also be really important because you're not having to pay for that. And a bunch of other stuff. So do we have any questions on this so far, recruitment? Alrighty.